I would like to start by asking you all to close your eyes and imagine you're on a flight. It could be halfway across the world. Now, as you're sitting in this flight waiting to take off, you hear this announcement. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachita Puri, and I'm your chief flight attendant. On behalf of Captain Cody and the entire SGx organizing crew, welcome aboard Airlines SGx2023. Our flight time today will be about 10 minutes, and at this time, please ensure your seat backs and tray tables are in the fully upright position and your seat belts are correctly fastened. Any portable electronic devices must be set to airplane mode. Thank you for flying with us, and we hope you have an enjoyable journey. Congratulations. For a change, you probably paid some attention and didn't have headphones in during the in-flight safety brief. So I say that because whenever I'm usually on a plane and flying, the safety brief is the last thing on my mind. I'm more worried about whether or not I remembered to pack my charger or turn off the stove before leaving home. It's thanks to existing international safety regulations that I have the luxury to not worry about my safety when I'm on an airplane. Aviation is one of the safest means to travel, and many studies show that the likelihood of something bad happening is very, very low. So, all right, I think that's enough about aviation and aircraft. I know we're here to talk about space. So what about space, and what about human spaceflight safety if you and I were on board a spacecraft instead of an aircraft? I love space, and ever since I can remember, I wanted to become an astronaut. I grew up in India through high school, and when I try to think of who inspired me to pursue this dream, NASA astronaut Dr. Kalpana Chawla was one of my biggest role models. Dr. Chawla was the first woman of Indian origin to go to space, and she accomplished many remarkable feats. She was also, unfortunately, on board Space Shuttle Columbia the day its fatal accident took place in 2003. Now, Dr. Chawla inspired me to dream, but she also taught me that space is risky, especially for those who are brave enough to venture out into the unknown to explore. We've come a long way as an industry and as a space community since the Columbia accident, and we're only continuing to advance further as we shape the safe future of space to reap its full benefits. Over the next decades, we can expect to see many more commercial missions, including commercial human space flights to the moon, to Mars, and even commercial point-to-point missions. Most of this has never been done before, and organizations like the Federal Aviation Administration play a key role in enabling these novel missions by integrating them into the existing global framework. Since 1989, the FAA has authorized way over 500 operations, and just last year, in 2022, it was a record 84 missions, including launches, reentries, and human spaceflights. Now, let's take a closer look at these human spaceflights. Carried out by SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, since 2004, there have been 30 such missions carrying over 90 people, ages between 18 and 90 years old, for tourism, research, and even to the International Space Station. As the frequency and complexity of these types of missions continues to skyrocket, there's a greater need than ever to create safety frameworks and efforts for these spaceflight participants. Before I dive too deep into these safety efforts, I'd like to talk about and provide some background on the FAA's role and authority. I work as an aerospace engineer at the Federal Aviation Administration's Office of Commercial Space Transportation, which is also called AST. In my role, I'm responsible for licensing commercial missions by SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others, and I do so by keeping two things in mind. The first is to enable the future of the space industry by following the FAA's Encourage, Promote, and Facilitate mandate. And then the second, and most important, is that I'm responsible for evaluating every aspect of a proposed operation to ensure that the public is being kept safe at every step. Now, when it comes to occupant safety, in 2004, Congress put on a learning period, or what's called a moratorium on the FAA, which limits the FAA's current oversight and rulemaking authority when it comes to human spaceflight. As we move further, though, and think about what comes next, the FAA is in what we call a regulatory preparation period for human spaceflight. What does this regulatory preparation look like? So our approach is focused on three major efforts here on the slide, and I'll talk about each of these more in detail. So first up is the establishment of a SPARC. Aviation rulemaking committees are called ARCs, and these have been used over many decades by the Aviation Safety Organization. The concept here is to create something similar and set up aerospace rulemaking committees, which we call SPARCs. The task of the SPARC will be to gather industry data and inputs, and these will comprise of 20 to 30 representatives from across the industry, current license holders, academia, and a range of government agencies. The most important task of the SPARC will be to ensure that the right people are in the room and provide diverse perspectives when it comes to considering the scope, framework, and cost of future regulations. Next, I'll talk about the recommended best practices for occupant safety document, which was originally published by the FAA in 2014. In the last 8 years, though, the scope and type of such missions has changed considerably. So in the updated version, we're including several new topics, some of them listed here on the slide. And in the original, there were 89 safety practices grouped into 3 categories: design, manufacturing, and operations. We'll continue to expand on these. Another key element of this best practices document is going to be the inclusion of verification statements. These verification statements are what will provide guidance to the industry on how these safety practices should be implemented and how that implementation should be demonstrated. Now, third and finally, I'll talk about the development of voluntary consensus standards for human spaceflight. This is a fully international effort, and the FAA is working with ASTM, which is the largest international standards organization with over 30,000 members. Their F-47 committee, established in 2016, has 5 technical subcommittees with a lot of work going on human spaceflight standards, which the FAA is closely monitoring. We are also working with the US Technical Advisory Group in the International Standards Organization, and here there are 167 member countries. There are 7 working groups working on standards for both crewed and uncrewed space vehicles, including the design, production, maintenance, operations, and environments. So that sums up the 3 major key focus areas, and there has already been an extensive amount of work carried out on these by a team, led by a team that I'm proud to be a part of. The FAA is dedicated to ensuring both public and occupant safety on commercial human space flights. We also believe that our efforts can be used as a model for other countries to adopt, just like our launch and re-entry regulations have been. I'd like to end by saying that, yes, it's an exciting time to be a part of the space industry, but also to make an impact as a young professional. For me personally, at the FAA, I feel like I have a voice and ability to define the future of what space should look like by being a part of shaping such crucial safety frameworks. I believe that space should look sustainable, and it should be accessible to everyone, not just a select few. By making space safer, we're ensuring that we're getting closer to making space open for all. Thank you so much for having me.